Welcome back to the Balance Sheet, where we discuss all things women's wrestling. And what a week it is to have our first ever guest. She goes by the name of Crissy. Crissy, say what's up to everybody.
Hi everyone, and thank you for letting me get on here with y'all.
And, Crissy is going to give us a report from her experience at NXT this past weekend in Atlanta, where we saw two massive women's tag matches that were tremendous. And she's going to give us kind of that in person experience. Obviously, my colleague Billy also has a report from AEW. He drove to Huntsville, Alabama to see the one and only incomparable Mercedes Moné wrestle
Oh yeah.
and main event AEW
Yes,
Dynamite for the
sir.
first time. So he's going to give us that report. But before we get started, we're obviously going to have to start at the Women's Royal Rumble. But I have to say one thing. EAGLES Eagles. All right. With that being said, let's get right into it. Women's Royal Rumble happened last night, Indianapolis, Indiana. Record crowd, 70,000.
Hmm.
And it's going to be met, I think, with some controversy as the online reviews of this Royal Rumble is one of the worst that it's ever been for the women. Charlotte Flair was the winner. But I don't know if anybody really walked away from that match satisfied. So, ladies first here, Crissy, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts with the WWE Women's Royal Rumble?
Mhm. Um, a lot of people had their expectations. I think you have the same, where the women's rumble was what they imagined the men's rumble, and they should have swapped positions in terms of structuring. I think that it shouldn't outshadow the 2022 Rumble winners as maybe being the most lackluster. Uh, Charlotte Flair is, I mean, a baseball girly right now in the position of the New York Yankees. Um, a lot of people see dynasty history in the Yankees. A lot of fans, but there is a great discord between fan base and the industry as a whole for baseball, where the Yankees position truly is in the sport. And I think a lot of the online in person discussion will contribute to that and lend to my comparison. Charlotte Flair is the first two-time Royal Rumble winner. That was certainly a choice. I was present in the crowd when she won the 2020 Royal Rumble alongside Drew McIntyre. Um, that was met with some fanfare. I felt like that was a foregone conclusion by many after the 2019 Royal Rumble, where Becky and Seth Rollins won. This 2025 Royal Rumble, it was a foregone conclusion that Charlotte was going to win the Rumble. I don't believe those decisions really hit well with the fans when you consider we love surprises, we love an underdog, and I think the reception towards Jey Uso, the reception towards the 2024 Rumble winners, the 2023 Rumble winners, in past is indicative of those choices when you're selecting the Rumble winner. I think I was discussing with you guys. I believe that the Rumble makes a star. A lot of people believe that that position is reserved for the Money in the Bank pay per view. I think the Money in the Bank is lends itself to confirming who is a star. But I think in the Royal Rumble, you should make a star. And when you consider past Rumbles and Manias in the past 3 years, the fans love to be confirmed. They love to be acknowledged. That hey, we are hearing you, we are listening to you, and we're going with your choice. One of the most organic rises in wrestling outside of Mercedes Moné, who is not present in the WWE. One of the positive stories in wrestling is the rise of the man Becky Lynch, and fans loved that their story was being confirmed, their thoughts were being acknowledged within the booking of the show. And when you present it as such and you say, hey, we are listening to you and follow through. I think that provides for the best product. And a lot of what presented in the Rumble with regards to the match layout, not a lot to write home about when you have a stacked roster and it doesn't translate well. Um, PFC should have been a hugely dominant force in the Rumble. They were very lackluster, I would say. The star hitters coming between 20 and 30 and very questionable elimination decisions, timings. I think they got the runner up right. Charlotte Flair owes me $500. That's a conversation for another day. I thought the final four, or final three in this case, was a great decision. The ending is always going to be a shaky landing when you put it on Charlotte Flair. Now she has to execute. Now she has to prove at WrestleMania 41, because for me it looks like a very foregone, very predictable conclusion.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. I think, I mean, we've been talking about Charlotte Flair here for a couple weeks, and I got no issues with her winning. Maybe because I've known for a month. We've all known for a month she was gonna win. But I think you nailed a couple things there. The setup of the match, the way it ended, the final three, um, was just so lackluster as far as effort goes, especially when you compare it to the layering of stories that went into the men's match. And it's this conversation we continue to have. It's why we have a podcast like this, is women, um, I don't know. They think they're protecting Charlotte Flair. I think they're doing a disservice to Charlotte Flair. And I'm just going to lay out a couple things that have always been true of the Royal Rumble that they didn't do this year. They always heat someone up, one or two or three people that you're like, based on how they've been booked the last month or two, they could totally win this Rumble. Um, they really didn't do much of that with the women. I mean, Io's been booked well for the last six months to a year, where Io could have won, but they didn't specifically like get her out there having matches in December and January where you're like, Io's going to win, right? That's what they normally do. They did it with Bianca, they did it with Rhea. They couldn't do it with Charlotte, obviously, with her returning. But I think that they do stuff like that to protect Charlotte, air quotes. And it doesn't protect her. It just makes fans more mad when she wins. If Charlotte would have won, but you were willing to layer in some stories the way the men's match went, and we had some struggle and some feuds get kindled and some things like that, and she ultimately wins, it would have been a lot more satisfying. But what they did was the most mass babyface elimination in the history of the men's or women's Royal Rumble. All at once, guys, correct me if I miss anyone, all at once, this match lost Bianca, Naomi, Io Sky, one or two other people in there, right?
I want to say
Liv,
Julia was an outlier.
Julia,
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Stephanie. That's absurd. And if you think I'm just complaining, imagine how everyone would have felt if Seth and CM Punk were fighting and bickering on the ropes and Logan Paul eliminated all three of them. They hit the floor, they pushed each other, and then they went to the back. Basically what they did to the women. Liv Morgan, too, got eliminated in that
Liv,
moment,
yeah,
too.
Liv, or
So
yeah.
you had everyone consequential, for the most part, left in the match, and we were left with Nikki, Nia, Roxanne, and Charlotte, right? Now, the only thing I love what they did was with Roxanne, and Raj, I know you're going to touch on that, but you basically have Nia eliminate everyone for Charlotte to eliminate Nia, and then, Charlotte did it. And it's so lazy, and it's like you're telling us, hey, we know you guys don't love this decision, but we don't care. We're going to do it anyway. That's how I felt. I felt like I could have turned it off after that mass elimination. All those women deserve way more of a moment And if you're going to eliminate Bianca Belair, give Stephanie Vacour the elimination so people go, oh shit, she eliminated Bianca. Like,
Or
there's
even the
ways to.
surprise. Like
Yeah.
Naomi and Bianca have tension, with the Jade situation.
Yeah.
Even a surprise. That would have
Yeah.
furthered
Absolutely.
their story. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
No. I would have loved for Naomi to accidentally eliminate Bianca or vice versa. Like, I think that would have been much better than what we ended up getting.
Because they had tension when Naomi
Mhm.
she hugged
Jordan.
Jordan and Bianca is like, "What are you doing?"
And
I
that was a
thought
good
that that
spot.
was gonna
Yeah, that was.
I was actually happy with the way the Rumble was going up until that spot. My comment I kept saying over and over again was, "This is the most crowded I've ever seen them leave the ring." What was it, 15 or 16 at one point?
It's
And so
15,
I'm
yeah.
like, so it's like, okay, they're really gonna make something of this, and then they do the easiest route and just eliminate people at once. It's just kind of a joke, and it's beneath what they should. You couldn't write something better for a 4 match show. 4 matches last night, guys. We didn't even get a kickoff matches. We got 4 matches. They couldn't write anything better than that for the women, or they could have, and they chose not to, because Charlotte would have gotten booed if she eliminated Bianca or eliminated um, Naomi or a couple of the other women. Roxanne was the perfect person for her to eliminate last, because Roxanne fans were just happy to still be there, right? Like,
Hmm.
holy crap, she broke the record. Like, they made Roxanne look great, and so that was the one baby face they felt like they could get away with her eliminating.
No,
I
Roxanne's
just
a
thought it was
heel.
lazy.
Roxanne's a heel.
Yeah, but
Correct.
she has
Fan
fans,
favorite.
right?
True.
Like,
I did bet
uh,
on her.
That's a good bet. Almost won.
who is at a championship level yeah, she's a
That's
heel. You're right. It actually is why she was perfect. Heel. You nailed it.
So here are my thoughts about it. I think it's one of the most poorly booked, agented Royal Rumble matches of all time, male or female. Just because of that mass elimination. Like, that just speaks to, we want to pad Naya's stats for most eliminations ever. So the simplest way to do it is have her get the heat for eliminating all of the women that everybody likes. And then, slowly just have Charlotte win and pretend like this just didn't happen. I hated everything about that. Like, have Julia and Stephanie throw each other over the top fighting. You set up their feud. Have Naomi and Bianca do that. Bailey, Io, there's a damage control story there. Like, they could have literally had these women eliminate each other and have separate feuds and not even worry about trying to win the Rumble. They didn't do that. Um, Clearly Charlotte was going to win. I think we all knew that a month ago. When they did the vignettes with her, I was like, maybe she isn't going to win because they're almost telegraphing it. And I'm like, well, they like what happened with the men, I thought was going to happen with the women. They tell us Charlotte, tell us Charlotte, and then it's Io, and then it's Naomi. It's somebody that we didn't expect, but they didn't do it. Um, I don't I don't know if they'll ever get Charlotte right in this company. Like, they had an opportunity to make her a sympathetic babyface where she comes back, she talks about the grind, the struggle. I might never wrestle again. I'm an elder stateswoman. I have a torn ACL. Doctors told me I could never wrestle again. Maybe I can't do the moonsault. But instead, it's like, no, I'm Charlotte. I'm going to come back. I'm going to get the booking that everybody hates that I get on purpose. And I'm just going to play
Everyone's
to that.
sick.
Yeah.
She's been back one day, and everyone's sick of her booking already. I mean, that's
And you know what else I knew I don't know if you guys caught this. They did this on the fly. Did you notice how Alexa Bliss got eliminated right before Charlotte came out? Because you wonder if somebody in the back was like, wait a minute, get Bliss out of there. Because now we not only have to deal with the women in this mass elimination that people are going to be pissed about, now they're going to have What if Charlotte was supposed to eliminate Bliss originally, and they're like, no, 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 take Bliss out of it and do Liv Morgan? Because you could tell Liv and Alexa, I think, is a Mania match. The way that that was booked yesterday, didn't Liv eliminate Alexa?
She did.
Yeah.
So I think there's something gonna happen there. But I mean, Alexa's reaction is what they should have hoped Charlotte got. Like if they were gonna book Charlotte the way I thought, the way Billy, you have been saying they should have. I don't know if they would have got that reaction. I don't think Charlotte's ever gotten that reaction. But
No vignettes, she gets that reaction. I swear to God. No vignettes. And she just shows up after 13 months. Crissy, I mean, you've been to more shows, I think, than any of us, and we
yeah,
are all horsewomen. We're happy to have Crissy on the show. If you
Fans,
guys don't
yeah.
know, Crissy has been to a lot of really good shows.
I've
Loves
been really
Bailey, loves Mercedes. Charlotte is the least popular horsewoman. I think we would all agree from a just fan sentiment standpoint. But
yeah.
that's the way she's always been booked. 15 months without her appearing at all, no vignette. She gets a monster pop. Monster pop.
so
She
like, you
get
think she gets the Bliss pop?
Yes.
when she returned to defeat Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair got an ovation. You
Yeah,
have to have the perfect foil that we're like, we're sick of this person that will even take you. I've been very fortunate to attend several monumental events. The first WrestleMania where the women main event at 35, WWE Evolution, past previous manias, that Royal Rumble 2020 itself, I believe WrestleMania 38 and 40, to kind of follow along with the storylines you would say of the horsewomen. And for me, an unbiased crowd reaction, it is Mercedes, Becky, Bailey, Charlotte. Now that is by no means a four horseman list. Who's the best? Discourse. I'm not trying to open the door to that because I love mine, and I'm sure everybody has their favorites. I love Charlotte Flair. It is always her chasing the perception versus the reality. Um, we love Charlotte. I think Charlotte would be perfect for, say, an IC title or a US title, elevating that championship, as I saw Bailey do when she entered that contest, the competition for a tournament for the US title, elevating others, lifting up others. I don't think we really have gotten Charlotte Flair really elevating others. When she won the Royal Rumble, she goes and challenges the NXT champion, who is the hottest she's been, and at peak wins and wins and wins. Someone say Mania 32. Um, uh, the hottest superstars are in that match. Wins. It's not this elated feeling that they show in the WWE promos. I feel like there's this disjunction with what I see, uh and what we witnessed personally, how we felt. That perception versus reality is always gonna chase Charlotte Flair, because I think they see her as the person we want to win. They present her in some almost this underdog way, but she's on top. You can't present her as John Cena and then say she's Jey Uso when she's John Cena. She's the New York Yankees. She's not the Boston Red Sox. You just, I think if they would own it, fans would say, okay, we accept that. That is the reality. Okay. Because Randy
I,
Orton, when Randy Orton gets a title shot, where is Randy? I hope he's okay. Uh, when Randy Orton gets a title shot, there's no question. He's Randy Orton. There's no challenge. Even presented in the Randy Orton way. This is who she is. She's at that level. Not presenting it in a way that, oh, she's this underdog and she's fighting. She's not an underdog. She's got the most world championships. She's top girl. She's just simply that girl to you. And you know, have the charisma, the story, the heel character to follow through. Someone said to me, this is like Charlotte 5.0 because they feel like they've tried to reboot this character um that's there, but it feels like a rehash of things that have already been done. I would like that to
Yeah.
be false. I would hope that's false because for me, the foregone conclusion for WrestleMania is Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair, with I would imagine Rhea Ripley winning if that's the scenario. Um, I
It
lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
No, we got to get back to that because that's different from what we've been talking about
Yeah.
with Rhea and Charlotte. Real quick though, I do want to say
Yeah,
I don't think Charlotte should apologize for being booked like a supernova because the men don't. You bring
exactly,
up Randy Orton and John
exactly.
Cena. That's not what we're complaining about.
Yeah,
Um, I think they're doing what you said, but they're just doing it very poorly, and so it pisses us all off because
that's fair.
the men have all this production. Hey, I'm Randy Orton, but there's still a story. And that was just a lazily booked Rumble last night for them to come back and just be like, well, she won because she's Charlotte Flair. So just eat
Mhm.
it, you know? And
I
like,
did feel some moving parts. Like I did feel you said Liv and Alexa, Nikki Bella. I'm always confused with what they do with her because they tend to eliminate her in a very odd fashion, or she ends up in the finals and they do nothing after that. But I did feel some stories were addressed. They could have been moved along, as you guys both said, by eliminations. Roxanne and Bailey are feuding. Liv and Alexa could be feuding. Bianca and Naomi. Instead, they were all shoved all together and lumped all together in one by Naya, who's probably the top heel right now. But where's the momentum? Where are we going? I do tend to like that linear storytelling where they do telegraph, but the fact that they telegraph so hard, that's what made it so shocking to see Charlotte win. It was like, okay, uh, I guess you did telegraph that. I think probably the least surprised I've been by a Rumble winner in history in these past few years is like roads to WrestleMania where Cody Rhodes was having vignettes, and this was very similar to me, that it was essentially a foregone conclusion that he was winning. Um Telegraph is the perfect word. It was so, I guess, laid on thick that I just was thinking in the back of my mind, what if it's the bait and switch and we get someone like Io Roxanne winning? That would have been a great surprise. I think they should have went that route.
The Rumble score would have been much higher if they gave it to Io or Roxanne for me. You said
yeah,
something, Chrissy, that is totally different than what Billy and I have been talking about on this podcast for weeks.
Oh
I
no.
have long stated that when I heard Charlotte was coming back, it's Charlotte mother versus Tiffany daughter, right? Because to me, that's the perfect wrestling story, which is Tiffany is the new Charlotte and Charlotte doesn't want to give up her spot where it's like, hey, I'm still here. But I thought they would have done it the reverse, where Tiffany is like, hey, you're a has-been, you're a old, you get out of here, nobody cares about you. I'm the new hot thing. And Charlotte's like, hey, I was you once. Don't underestimate me. I really thought they were going to go in that direction, which I would have much preferred. You brought up something before we started to tape, which is I didn't even occur to me, which is the way they did that backstage thing after the Rumble ended, where Rio was like basically saying, oh, I'm done with Charlotte. Tiffany, it's your time to face her. And I'm like, well, why would they do that if maybe the match all along was Rhea Charlotte 3, which we forget that Charlotte Rhea happened in 2020. Charlotte Rhea happened again in 23, right?
Yeah.
23 and then
yep,
25, right? So they really do get their women's Rock Austin, right? Because
When you're a wrestling fan, I'm a huge soap opera fan. I feel like if you don't like soap operas, sometimes you're really gonna hate wrestling because it's either the wrestling or the story that you're gonna go for. And I always try to follow the story. I would like to hope that they're telling a story. And in the Rumble, I could see there were bits and pieces of things being written, being pushed along. And one of the biggest things that I've been tracking is that they tend to keep people far apart to revisit. And in the Rumble, they'll tease little things, things that might not even matter. Say, for example, Trish and Nia had a little showdown. I don't think anything would come of it, but it's a nice little tease, nice little taste. Well, then what if they did that? Uh, Rhea and Charlotte Flair have had almost like a reversal of fortune because Rhea was at her hottest in NXT, and then Charlotte took that all away, and Rhea was kind of lost for a while. And Charlotte has had those lulls, even as a champion, where she was lost because that fan connection is so vital. Um, it's lost in the shuffle, and no big match or no main event match can really grasp that without the fan connection. And it's that this disjointedness between the perception and the reality. Not to say she is an elite performer, at Evolution when she faced Becky Lynch, the ground was shaky. When they get it right and when she's on top of her game, uh she's elite. She is A1 rarefied air. She proves she is in the horsewomen position in conversation. Uh, but there are disconnects, uh, challengers that it doesn't really work. Where that's possibly my inclination with the WrestleMania match. Rhea versus Charlotte is a proven formula. That's a trilogy. Uh, Aside from Bianca Belair, you don't, in my opinion, pass up on them. I feel like there is time for Tiffany Stratton. But it is, in my estimation, Tiffany's almost rookie year on the main roster. She could definitely be aided by a multi-women WrestleMania match. Uh, I will always consider Bailey in that conversation. Just to get her feet wet at her first big Mania. She has held it down as an NXT Women's Champion. She has stepped up. I'm not sure if the time is now. I'm happy to be proven wrong by Tiffany Stratton. I'm always happy to be proven wrong by a superstar. But I think that the money match, when they think of making WrestleMania matches, they look at the most money, Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. It's just for me a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, I totally didn't even see that one. Like, I'm not saying you're wrong. Actually,
Yeah,
the way you describe it, it
I
makes a
love to be
lot of
swerved.
sense. I just thought it was Charlotte Tiffany, and I thought it was going to be Rhea Io. Those were my two
Yeah,
WrestleMania because I figured Rhea's going to not lose no matter who she's facing, and I
when I
think
saw that, that immediately gave me a signal. They're swerving me.
and you we all know that Rhea Bianca has to come at some point, right? Like it has to main event next year whenever they decide to do it. So I'm thinking, okay, this year it's Charlotte Tiffany. Billy talked about it, and I'll let Billy chime in here. Billy, you have said, hey, I'm okay if Tiffany wins this belt early January, loses to Charlotte at Mania, and then they have a feud that keeps going where Tiffany eventually gets the win back to cement her because she's so new. It's okay.
Yeah,
You know, she's had a good run. She loses her first Mania. The story is, hey, she didn't understand the gravity of the moment. And next year,
But they did that with
WrestleMania,
Rhea.
but
They did that
remember,
with
next year
Rhea.
WrestleMania is in Tiffany's hometown.
Yeah, so
yeah,
give it to her. Don't make her
yeah.
lose.
Well, she ain't gonna hold the belt for the next 18 months. She's gonna lose between now and next year.
Yeah,
Tiffany.
yeah.
I
Have her win the Rumble.
Yeah, she might be the prime person to win the Rumble
Yeah,
next year.
she
I
might
think if
be.
we're talking about this year, though, I think in every wrestling organization, for the most part, people have been holding belts a little bit too long lately.
Oh yeah.
Um, there's been way less surprises. Like, when was the last time someone won a title and you're like, holy crap, I didn't see that coming? That is the
I,
refreshing part about Jay winning last night, where you're like, I didn't see that coming. That's almost more surprising than a world title win. But I, I, I know Rhea is going to hold this belt for a minute right now. And so I would think that Tiffany is open, that they're going to have her lose at some point in the first half of the year, whether it's at Mania or post Mania or whatnot. I don't know what the match for Tiffany is. If not, Charlotte, and they got plenty of time to figure that out. Crissy, it's interesting. Like Raj said, we haven't discussed that at all. It's very WWE, and here
Yeah.
and it's so WWE, and I don't think the fans are as interested in that right now as they would think the fans are interested in, which makes me think you're so right.
That's the thing is I try to follow the little breadcrumbs of what would I want, and then I'm like, well, how would WWE mess that up? That's
That's a really
last year.
smart way to go.
Last year was such a surprise because so many times I was like, oh, I would love Bailey to win this, but you know,
They they
uh,
got they got it right with Bianca and Sasha. Everyone in the world wanted that, and they did it, and they did it right. They got it right with Bailey and Io. Everyone wanted
Hmm.
that, and they did it, and they did it right. Charlotte, Tiffany would be exactly that. Have we ever gotten that 2 years in a row? Maybe you're right, and it's their time to do what they want to do on the women's side. Not what we want to do. I think Charlotte, Rhea, ultimately at Mania. So the argument to run it back in the office, I think, could be very, very strong. Um, we'll see what happens, but it's definitely something to consider because now that match, Charlotte ain't winning
No.
for
I just
multiple
had a thought.
reasons.
I just had a thought. On the score bug that it seemed half the world hated. They noted that the Royal Rumble winner for the women are 3-2 at the Rumble. I 1000% believe because of that score bug that Charlotte Flair would be losing, and that would be an excellent decision because part of my I love Charlotte Flair, but part of my difficulty understanding her character is that I haven't seen her truly struggle.
Yeah, that's what we always
Hmm.
say.
Yeah.
Oscar lost, and who's the other person who lost?
Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
you're right.
She has it. Yeah. Ronda Rousey lost to Charlotte. Asuka lost to Charlotte. So Charlotte winning the Rumble and losing would be kind of poetic justice, right?
Yeah,
Wrap it
Because
up with a bow.
she's the one who's beaten to the winners. Look, if you want to make Charlotte the best heel in wrestling, you have her beat Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania. Because the vitriol she will get is it's going to be Dominic Mysterio levels of hate because you just cannot have Rhea Ripley lose to her. Like as hot as Rhea is and how popular Rhea is, you want to cement a heel, have Charlotte cheat Rhea out of the belt.
I
I
can't see
don't
him
think
doing
she
it.
needs that.
No, I
I
know, I
can't see
know.
I can't see him doing it because actually Mania has nothing to do with why I can't see them doing it. They would be, I mean, Rhea would have lost the trilogy, and it just seems like that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense based on, but yeah, I'd love to see Charlotte struggle. I probably sound like a hater on this particular episode of the podcast, but if you're listening for the first time, go back to about July and August. I've been clamoring for Charlotte to come back, and I wanted her to come back as a sympathetic figure. Um, I was ready to root for her. I was ready to be excited about it, and I could have even gotten into the heel run if it gets booked well. But it was lazy booking night one. That's what I hate. One real quick thing. Could she have gotten the Alexa Bliss pop? Yes. All they would have they manipulated the Alexa Bliss pop by saying she's not coming back. And they got Dave and Brian hook, line, and sinker. All they would have needed to do was have Charlotte not post training videos, leak a story December, early January, and say that Charlotte's rehab is not going as smoothly as they hoped. People would have been like, yeah, that's a smokescreen, but it would have put a little bit of doubt out there. And then she comes back with no vignettes. She would have gotten the Alexa pop, but they never handle her correctly. They don't.
So before I give it back to Christy, Christy said something about here are in my opinion, the rankings of the four horsewomen in terms of fan reaction. Mercedes, Sasha, Becky, Bailey, then Charlotte. Has Charlotte ever been as popular as Alexa Bliss was at her peak?
I think she is. I think this is goes without saying. Like in the ring, there is this
No, no, in the
distinct
ring, yeah. I'm not
difference.
talking about in the ring. I'm
But
talking about like crowd.
when it comes to the crowd pop, Alexa Bliss is in an area that is not touched. SummerSlam 2018, she was facing Ronda Rousey. She is in the Brooklyn crowd, who is a smart crowd. They went up for her so hard. Evolution. She wasn't even in a match. They went up for her so hard. WrestleMania 35. She was a host. The crowd went nuts. I won't talk about what happened after because
Yeah.
forget HH. Uh when I've heard Alexa Bliss's music go off, I would say Rumble 2020 is one of the more poignant because I think she and Bianca went 1-2 in the 2020 Rumble. Uh the place goes nuts. Her meet and greets are packed. I remember WrestleMania 35 being a little perturbed because I was in line for meet and greets, and you may have been to fan conventions,
Mhm.
WrestleMania Access. It tends to be packed. When they announced Alexa Bliss's name on the placard for the meet and greet, why did 20,000 fans come running at me and I am in the line? Now that is not to say there is lack of fanfare for Charlotte because I bought Charlotte meet and greets. She has a stable, loyal, loving fan base, some of the best fans in the world. That is not to discredit her in any way. When she comes out, the woos. Before the show, the woos. But if we have to put it on a level where I'm scaling it or measuring it, by far Alexa Bliss and then everybody else.
Like she's one of the five most popular WWE women of all time. Alexa Bliss is like in terms of
Yeah.
the
That
crowd
feud,
reaction. Like she split. I mean, she split the crowd with that. Go back and listen to I know you live in that East Coast area.
yeah.
Go watch the Monday Night Raw where she got drafted to Raw and Sasha and Bailey are in the ring. And she came out and that reaction dwarfed anything that they got. Like the
Money in
crowd
the
went
Bank 2018.
2018 Money in the Bank. So I know Billy, I think you're right that they could have gotten more out of Charlotte. Like they could have got a better pop for her. I don't know if she's going to get the Alexa Bliss pop because I just
I
don't know how many women can.
I will say something real quick. I think you guys are right, but we are living a little bit in the past, and absence makes the heart grow fonder. Alexa hasn't gotten reactions like that since pre-pandemic, like what she got last night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
And
no.
that's not
When
her fault.
her
That's not her fault. The way they booked her and the Fiend thing, and they changed her character. Her fan base was not that Fiend thing that they
Yeah.
that because I think of the music, the dunna dunna that was the pop, right? That was,
Hmm.
but every event you guys just named was before COVID. And
Yeah.
what I'm saying is not to say Alexa's not as popular. I'm saying that the surprise makes you feel when you're surprised, you think of the best moments you've ever thought of with that wrestler. You don't think, oh, the last time they were around, they weren't booked well and I didn't like their character. You think of the
yeah.
best. If they did that for Charlotte, she would have gotten a good pop. But 100%, Charlotte has never been popular as Alexa. And I think in modern times, the list is very, very, very short. It's it's Alexa, Becky, Sasha, Rhea. That's like
Bianca. No, I don't even know if Bianca honestly makes it,
no,
but
Bianca's probably like fifth right there with
yeah.
Bailey.
Bailey, yeah,
But
I would
if
say
you're talking
Bailey.
about
Putting Bailey
Alexa,
on the list is loving. Thank you.
Bailey's had some time. I mean, look at last year. But um, Sasha, Becky, Alexa, and Rhea were all popular enough to take away from men
Yeah.
Yeah.
and or
Yeah.
give heat to
Strong.
men, right?
Yeah.
All the four of them were dwarfing men They could be put out there with the men, and the crowd was more interested in them. They used Sasha to heat up Roman Reigns, for crying out freaking loud.
Yeah.
Alexis held her own with many men out there as a host and other things. Becky obviously had like mixed gender matches where that main event was built around her, so you got to give her that credit. And then Rhea was basically an immense storyline for most of the last 2 years, right? So I think that those four kind of take the cake there, but Charlotte, they just never have done it exactly right for her.
Chrissy talked about being at the 2020 Rumble where Charlotte won. I think that was Houston.
Yes, Houston, Minute Maid Park.
So I went to 2019 Royal Rumble in Arizona at the baseball stadium. And the pop that Becky Lynch got when she came out to replace Lana is one of the loudest things I've ever heard in my life. And remember, this is a person in me who attended Hogan Warrior WrestleMania 6, Rock Hogan WrestleMania X8 in Toronto, my hometown. So Becky's pop was as loud as anything I've ever heard in my life watching wrestling. The only louder pop than Becky for me, 2011 Chicago Money in the Bank. I was in the building when Punk came out to fight Cena. That's the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. My ear, I thought, was going to bleed. But
that was sustained too. That's what was crazy
that
about
was
that.
Yeah. And again, if you've ever been in that building at the Allstate Arena, the acoustics are perfect. Everything is amped up the way it's an old school kind of concert venue. But I mean, I just think that for what star power this women's Royal Rumble had, and I think other than Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, they had every woman other than AJ Lee, obviously, and they couldn't have brought AJ back. And here's why: because she would have overshadowed everybody, including Alexa or Becky. And I think Becky knew Charlotte was going to win and said, "I'll come back later. Don't worry about me. I got this. I'll come back on my terms."
Just made it worse. Yeah, if she
Yes.
came back, and it would have just made it worse because Alexa and Becky would have gotten these gigantic pops. The current females would have gotten group eliminated, and Charlotte would have won. It would have just made it worse.
I feel like you would have strayed the line of the Daniel Bryan, Batista Rumble,
Yeah,
or even
no, it could have been a
call.
revolt. Like, I think the crowd response was resignation. If Becky came back, the crowd response would have been more of like a revolt.
And the crazy thing is, Becky has a history with Tiffany and Rhea, right? Like that's what's crazy about it. Like Becky coming
and
back
Lyra.
and Lyra, yeah, and Lyra. Like, see, I wish, and I hope in years now going down the road, they do stuff like that. Like I had this fantasy booking idea, and I think I stole it from you, Chrissy. Yeah, I did steal it from you. I saw your tweet about Io versus Julia. And then the Joshi fan in me was like, hey, I've never seen that match. Oh my goodness, because by the time Io left, Julia wasn't even there. So it's like, oh my goodness, I've never seen Julia and Io. Ooh, Io wins the Rumble and says, I want the NXT champion because it's the best women's division in the world. And you could still have Charlotte fight Tiffany, and you could still have whoever fight Rhea, and you're not hurting anybody. And I was when they faced off in the Rumble, I was like, oh my goodness. And I want to see years down the road where people like, I want the IC title, I want the US title, I want the NXT women's title, because to me, you want to start to do what Mercedes has done in AEW with the TBS title, where you elevate those belts to be just as important as your quote unquote two top belts. But man, for the star power that women's Rumble had last night, and for what we got as the product, that is a disappointment. And we cannot sugarcoat it any other way, because I mean, you had Trish Stratus in there, and we didn't even talk about her. We've gone 30 minutes on this, and we didn't even talk about Trish Stratus.
Except how did Trish get eliminated? Nia by single by Nia, right?
Yeah, by Nia. And Nikki Bella is coming back. Like, it wasn't like Nikki Bella is making a cameo. Oh, by the way, the top 5 list we said, Nikki Bella is in that 5.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
whether it's Sasha, Becky, Alexa,
Nikki
Rhea,
Sawa.
Nikki, by the way, an Eagles fan, I just want to point that out too. Um, Nikki
Go
Bella
Birds.
is full-time returning. Who does she fight? Because if you go Charlotte Rhea 3, which is your idea, Chrissy, I wouldn't even think about that. I would do Tiffany Nikki. That's your
I
passing of the torch match.
I haven't gone
That's
back to
tough because she's a return.
Yeah, that's
to
true.
look at it again. Think Nia eliminated most of the group, but I think Nikki eliminated Bailey on the left side of the group, is what I saw a tweet. That Nikki's the one who pitched Bailey over. And
Yeah.
Nikki had said if there's one person she could ever wrestle if she came back, she said Bailey, because it's the only horsewoman that she never got to wrestle.
That's
Can I tag
And
true.
in?
Yeah.
right, yeah,
Can I tag in? All right, tag. Hot tag. Uh, when Nikki Bella was rehabbing from neck surgery, she specifically requested a Bailey for her rehab. That was shown on Total Bellas. She teased it last night, and WrestleMania 37 leaves a sour taste in my mouth because two Hall of Famers kept rolling Bailey down the entrance ramp, who
you're
was
right.
previously the
Oh,
champion for
that's right.
379 days. Now,
I tried to
I
block that out.
me too. I can't forget. I can't forget. Soon as I saw her and Bailey, the memories come pouring in. But they are presenting, they're telegraphing to me, uh, Roxanne and Bailey. But there is the Cora Jade in all of this. And if Nikki and Bailey want to tie up loose ends and form an alliance and show these youngsters how it's done, I'm just saying I'm not
Mhm.
opposed. If Nikki's sister is okay with letting Bailey be her partner, they can show the kids how it's done. And Roxanne has above and beyond proof that she is made for the spotlight. I was pleasantly uh happy, not so much surprised that Roxanne took the stage and she was the one of the highlights of the Rumble for the women. I was pleasantly surprised that she did runner up. At that point, she should have won because I had $500 on the line, um, but she is such a cornerstone to NXT, and what a way to bring her to the main roster if she and Cora face two one certified Hall of Famer, one I would say, I don't think this is with argument, first ballot Hall of Famer in the future. I see some nice ideas swirling, but I threw Io versus Julia out there because like I threw Io versus Utami Hayashishita out there, and that was the
Ugh,
longest of shots, and that ended up happening.
it did. Marigold was my second favorite match of the year.
Fight for your dreams kind of
Well,
scenario.
okay, so I put EO in like every dream match of mine, right? Like
Fantastic.
I wanted EO Sasha Banks, and I got it. I wanted Sasha Banks, Mayu Iwatani. I actually got that. I've seen EO versus Mayu. They had a tremendous match. It was actually EO's last match in Stardom before she came to NXT. If anybody out there wants to go look it up. So you can I can watch EO wrestle every day of the week, twice on Sunday. So I mean EO, I'm as big a fan of EO as anybody. Like EO's my girl, but like the EO Julia thing, I was like, oh my God. Like it was your tweet. It was exactly your tweet. I'm like, wait a minute.
Because I mean, what does
Ah.
Julia do? We have Vengeance Day, and she is Cora Jade and Bailey. Bailey is somewhat on this excursion. I love when wrestlers take excursions because they're like, what are they doing with Bailey? Why is she in everyone's business? She's obviously completing some side quests because she already 100%ed at Mania. You win at WrestleMania. You could do whatever you want after, in my opinion. Should have been a main event. Uh, I mean, that will be a hang up every now and then, but I'll never argue. she was the main event to that crowd in Philly for us. They were singing at the top of their lungs, 50-degree, 40-degree weather. She won in my book. But in my mind, Bailey is completing some side quests. What do you do with the NXT champion Julia? Her current story is Roxanne and Cora being in her side. Is that a Mania match though? If they've done that before, if they've shown, telegraphed, Julia got the win on Roxanne visibly. Julia got the physical win over Roxanne. Cora Jade just coming back. Why not Io Sky? Io Sky is a top girl.
Hey,
It,
I might go to Vegas to see Io versus Julia, honestly, because that is like of the women's matches in WWE that I want to see. Obviously, Julia Stephanie is one, but Billy, and we're gonna get to both of your kind of on the road reviews here, but Billy pointed out something to me that it hurt me when he said it, but he was right.
Oh,
Julia and Stephanie as a combo wrestling each other is not that good. Like, if you go back and watch all their matches together, they have never really clicked as like this. You would think two women of that caliber and how good they are wrestling each other, like just wrestling, when they lock
they're
up,
both
it's going to be so amazing. And honestly, I went back and I've watched their matches, and I'm like, mm.
Stephanie's yeah,
Yeah.
Stephanie's so smooth, and against Julia, she's not. It just looks like a different. Sometimes it don't mix. I don't know.
Hmm.
Not to say they can't have a good match, but uh, it hasn't worked yet.
So both of you this week attended wrestling events, right? And I think we've spent a lot of time on the Women's Royal Rumble, and I think that probably for all of our sanity, we should move on because honestly, it just for what they had and what they actually ended up delivering, it's a disappointment. But let's start with you, Chrissy. This past Tuesday, in my second hometown in America, which is Atlanta, Georgia, I have a place my family does. You were at a historic wrestling building in Center Stage. And for those of the fans who listen to this don't know, Center Stage is where the old WCW Saturday Night was taped. Before they went to the Disney studios to save money, they used to tape all the old WCW, NWA Saturday Night TBS shows at Center Stage in Atlanta. And so you were in that historic wrestling building that has seen a lot of things, some Sting winning the title, Macho Man's debut in WCW happened in that building. Hulk Hogan's debut in that company happened in that building. You were there for NXT this past Tuesday, and there were two monumental women's tag matches. I'll set the stage with what the matches were, and then you walk us through what you got from the in-person experience. So you had Bailey and the NXT Women's Champion in Julia facing Roxanne and Cora, the resident Mean Girls. And then you had for the women's tag team titles, Bianca Belair and Naomi versus Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, as Twitter named that match Black Girl Magic, in the perfect city to have that match, Atlanta, Georgia. So Chrissy, why don't you walk us through what you felt being in the building?
sure. And decision. I skipped the Rumble. As soon as I heard this tag match, Julia and Baylor, my first thought was this will never happen again. There is no universe where I see this ever being possible. This is a sign from the universe. Go. So I went. For an intimate crowd, I am not a numbers girly with this. I would say maybe 1,000, 2,000 people. It felt a very intimate setting, uh, like a house show, but very warm. They were very warm, receptive. They were very reactive. Atlanta was such a hot, hype crowd. I appreciated being in that audience. They reacted to everything. Even humorously, my goodness. There was a third match on the card, Fallon Henley versus Shotzi, I believe for the North American Women's title,
Yep.
where I'm not gonna lie to you, they were chanting every single menu and item on the Chick-fil-A menu. Like they went from fake A cowgirl to chicken tenders, waffle fries, chicken sandwich, and they were still invested in the match. They were just trying to find a way to rattle and boo Fallon Henley. But the environment was beautiful. It was wonderful. I felt that they were very appreciative of women's wrestling. Uh, and I felt like it was special. Like that event was special. It was an NXT episode, and it felt like a really solid, strong, special episode. I felt like through the through the match card, there was structure, there was organization. As someone who likes storytelling, there was a linear, cohesive story, and whoever agents or produces these matches, that they felt the way to hit the right perfect notes, because I don't think there could have been a more perfect main event. I recall feeling in the opening that that was pretty predictable for me. I expected Bailey and Julia to open and come out, Julia getting a great pop. I know I was there for the pop meter. Julia got a great fan reception. Bailey got the love. The NXT audience, they have this adoration, and respect for Bailey. So her taking this excursion, I think, is definitely needed for her character, even if she takes losses, because there is that audience that still appreciates and respects what she's done. This show loves women's wrestling, and it profiles and showcases them. So I think that was the platform. And then you have the up and coming returning Cora Jade, who's getting her reps in. You got Roxanne, who's still very well a threat, and she looms for the main roster. You think like she's ready for the main roster, and her positioning gives me Bailey vibes, because Bailey was the horsewoman that was left behind. Everyone was like, "Why is she not on the main roster? Why is she not on the main roster?" That's a why isn't she with? Was it July 15th,
Hmm.
2015?
In
Charlotte
Atlanta.
Flair in Atlanta, Charlotte Flair, uh, Becky Lynch, the NXT Women's Champion. At the time, Sasha Banks come out, and everyone's like, where's Bailey? After WrestleMania 32, Charlotte is having her champion celebration, and they are chanting for Bailey. And Roxanne, in my head, it's like, when is she coming? Yeah, why isn't she here yet? Uh, it gives me that Bailey feeling. And fun fact, we know 2024 Bailey won the Rumble from the number 3 position. Roxanne came in the Rumble at number 3 and broke her time record. Uh, Liv Morgan, I think, has the all-time time record, might possibly, but Roxanne came in and broke her time record from the number 3 position this year. So I could feel like they have some bits for storytelling. I don't know if that was intentional or just like by accident they kind of slipped into that. Because Bailey won the Rumble from 3. Roxanne was runner up from 3. Roxanne beat her time. I think Bailey was a minute 3. Roxanne was a minute 7. Sorry, an hour 7. Sorry. Um, and I get the strong feeling that you put Roxanne on that WrestleMania stage. There is no mistake doing that. She's beyond ready. Like she's been ready for the main roster probably for 2 years. Same with that feeling when Bailey was up there. She won the NXT title. She was the ace of NXT. Roxanne has been the ace in NXT, and it's almost like watching maybe mother daughter, but one could say Roxanne has surpassed her. Roxanne maybe has succeeded her because she's had more successes in the NXT Women's Champion. She's more dominant. So this is Bailey's swan song, and we have Cora Jade. She's the outlier. I don't know about Cora Jade. I don't know. we hear the internet talking and they love to make comparisons. And I apologize that their comparison was Sasha Banks because those are some shoes to fill. Cora Jade is Cora Jade, and I don't know yet who Cora Jade is, and that scares me because she can be elite, she can be great. I want to see her break out. Right now, for me, the story was, they pushed it along. Bailey and Roxanne, you saw them tease. They're both teasing that old hugger era, and Bailey showed him, I'm not that hugger anymore. I can put you in your place. You guys can see me in the broadcast when
Mhm.
she gets that audible win and the 1, 2, 3. They had cohesive tag work. Fans were invested. Fans were in it. Uh, and Bailey got the solid win. It made sense for me for there to be tension in the Rumble because of that win. So that didn't make sense to me that Roxanne and Bailey weren't involved in each other's elimination because they Bailey got the clean victory here. The storytelling for me, if I'm telling the story, okay, well, Roxanne should cost Bailey the Rumble. Cora should help her cost Bailey the Rumble. And then Bailey has, as the previous winner, a reason why she didn't win the Rumble. Why didn't you two-peat? Why didn't you go back to back? And then Roxanne could say, I'm better than you, and Bailey could have a reason to now, okay, now we're fighting. This tag match, when you consider the Rumble in context now, is, well, you tied a bow on it. Why should they go back to each other? And then that kind of loses Julia because the Vengeance Day match is, uh I believe, is it Cora Jade and Bailey. Roxanne wasn't chosen. So once again, you have an opportunity to have Roxanne do something, but that only shows me tension between Roxanne and Cora Jade.
I think Roxanne is in it. Cora Jade's
Yeah,
not.
I
Roxanne is
apologize.
in it.
Conflict.
Yeah.
Switch the two. I apologize. Roxanne and Julia and Bailey are in the match. Cora Jade's not. This shows me tension between Cora Jade and Roxanne. Doesn't show me anything between her and Bailey unless something goes on in the match. I could certainly be wrong. Love to be wrong, but then they'd have a lot of work to do in the Vengeance Day and the NXTs that follow. But my thoughts immediately after this match. Oh, Roxanne is absolutely costing Bailey the Rumble. I just thought that was like a big gimme, a big like flashing lights, like that has to happen, and I think
Yeah.
that should have happened because they would have given Roxanne a lot of heat, probably would have helped the reaction of Charlotte Flair's victory because, oh, you just threw out our big fan favorite, we love Bailey. Wow, forget you got thrown out. Good for you. And Cora not being involved, I guess that's a decision. I would have had her in the Rumble with Roxanne or coordinating even as a manager. I don't know. But huge.
That could pull the attention further that Cora feels left out of everything because you could
Ooh,
have Roxanne
Yeah.
be happy Tuesday with her performance and Cora mad that she wasn't in it.
ah,
But what you say about her eliminating Bailey, those just so we don't like to complain just to complain. That's what I'm saying of layers of story because if she
yeah.
would have single-handedly eliminated Bailey, then you've got that layer. And then to your point, Charlotte gets a more
It,
Yeah,
they
I thought it
just
was a fastball down the middle. Just you hit
yeah,
it.
they dropped the ball on the women's rumble in so many multitude of areas. Before Billy, you chime in on what you watched over on TV with the NXT show. We don't bring up WrestleMania 32, Chrissy, on this podcast. I'm joking because
Sorry.
I was at Mania 32 and I never felt so deflated like I did. I told the
I'm
story
sorry.
of seeing her lose because the whole crowd was pretty much there for her to win. But I like Cora Jade. I think she has a super talent of being a presence.
Yeah.
But anybody who compares her to 23, 24-year-old Sasha Banks, they should be drug tested. Because quite honestly, I don't know how many women in the history of professional wrestling have been as good, other than maybe Roxanne,
those are the
as
two.
Sasha Banks, other than maybe Manami Toyota in the 90s. But like she's in rarefied air. Roxanne is as good as she is, as young as she is, and Mercedes is there too. I'm thankful that they left Cora Jade out of the triple threat match at Vengeance, because those three women are going to steal the show. They are going to have one of
Yeah.
the best matches of the year. Bailey is going to give it her all because she is so inspired to kind of pass the torch to two up and coming superstars. Roxanne
That's
is
why
in
we love
there.
her.
Yeah,
That's why I
Roxanne
love
is
her.
in there with her idol, one of her idols. She's going to give it her all. And look, Julia's right. Like, Julia cut a promo that I think went over a lot of people's heads a couple of weeks ago, where she said, "I'm here in NXT because of you, Bailey." She's right. Like, if it weren't for Bailey and Sasha Banks, Asuka doesn't come to NXT. Io doesn't come to NXT. Kyrie doesn't come to NXT. Julia doesn't come to NXT, because Julia came because of the three women that I just talked about: Kyrie, Asuka, Io. Well, they came because of Bailey and Sasha. So there is a lineage there, with why Julia is in NXT. And honestly, I couldn't be more excited for that triple threat match. So Billy, the day before you took your road trip, you got to watch that show on TV. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I think Chrissy nailed it, and it's a little bit different than what I experienced in Huntsville, which I'll get into. Is the crowd loved women's wrestling. It was a show built around women's wrestling. I thought the Shotzi Fallon match was fun. Um, I'm a Shotzi fan, so I'm happy to see her in there and look like she's getting back to when she was very over. The I thought Lash Legend and Chikara were incredible, and they matched energy with Naomi and Bianca, which is really freaking hard to do. So I think that they're main roster ready for sure as well. Um, Cora Jade, you know who I see her as a good comp? Uh, is Chelsea. Um, but not in the comedic way so much, of a connector. She's going to have a long career in WWE because her presence and promo ability and that stuff, it will fit in stories with other women, and she'll be a connective person as stories go along, because she can do a little bit of the comedy stuff, she can do a little bit of the mean girl stuff. She wrestles well enough that she's going to be in rumbles in the future, though she wasn't in this year's and stuff. And so I see her as someone who can more blossom in the storytelling part of wrestling, um, with backstage segments and stuff like that, because I think she thrives in some of those areas. And frankly, it's actually easier to make your mark on the main roster as that person than the
Yeah.
person who's great in the ring but not good on camera.
Could she be
Alexa
the next
Bliss.
Bliss? Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
gonna say. Is Cora Jade
yeah,
the next? Is the comp for her? Like, if you're WWE and you're looking at this like from a draft standpoint, and NFL draft, they do it every year. The comp for the player is the Cora Jade comp. The best case scenario, Alexa
best
Bliss.
case is Alexa, and a lesser best case is Chelsea, and that's not a
Yeah,
real lesser. Chelsea's great.
yeah.
She's, but Alexa, as we just talked about, was the most over woman on the roster in 2017 and 2018. So, if you want me to pivot over to AEW, unless you wanted to add something on Jakara, Bianca,
Sure.
and all that.
I'll give my 2 cents. As somebody, obviously, because we started this podcast together for women's wrestling and to be positive about women's wrestling, the genre of women's wrestling is highlighted so superior on NXT compared to any other women's wrestling show in
Night
the
and day.
world.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really, it's gotten to the point where I feel like we should be hired by Shawn Michaels, because this podcast would be part of something he would do. Like, he's so good at how he books women. I don't know if it's a gift, because he was one of the most gifted professional wrestlers ever. So he sees things in such a, or somebody brought this up to me. He's so good at booking women's wrestling because in all of the women, he sees himself, which is, he was never the biggest, he was never the strongest, he was never the fastest, but he was always technically the best with Bret Hart. And he looks at the women as it's his kind of wrestling. Like the kind of wrestling Shawn Michaels loves, the women provide it more than the men do because it's not a complete spot fest. So is that why he's so good at it? Because the little things he does that I noticed on this show, and I noticed it on every show, like how Shotzi loses, but she didn't lose really anything losing that match. Like she's still gonna be a viable player. Who took the pin? Was it Roxanne from Bailey or was it Julia or Cora?
Bailey got the pin on, I believe, Roxanne.
Cora.
Cora.
No, it's
Sorry,
Cora
Corey. The
because
elbow.
Roxanne backstage said, I didn't
Sorry,
lose.
I was in
Cora
the
lost.
corner.
Right,
I was in
right.
the corner. I apologize. I saw the
So
jump.
the fact that Cora takes the pin and they used that in the story right away was great.
Yeah.
Julia didn't even pin Cora, but it was used to get Bailey into the title match, which is great.
Yeah.
The way Shawn Michaels books women's wrestling, I don't know if Triple H isn't watching NXT anymore because he's so busy doing all the main roster stuff. But, you know, I worried about Roxanne going to the main roster because of Triple H's booking, and now it can be a little. But with Shawn Michaels, like, I don't worry. Like, I know when Stephanie wins the belt, it's going to be the right time for Stephanie to win the belt. I
In the
know
right
Julia,
reign.
yeah, and I know Julia's going to get the right reign out of it. I know he's going to leverage a Bailey correctly. Um, I mean, I got to be honest, like, I could see Alexa Bliss having a nice NXT run with HBK kind of at the helm. Like what I saw in that whole production is women's wrestling in NXT is actually the drawing card of the show. It's not
Yeah.
the men because they opened the show, they closed the show, they have the highest ratings on the show. Like that's why NXT is so great because as a women's wrestling fan, you don't ever think the women are getting cheated. You could make the case the women you could make it, I would make it. Hey, they get too much in NXT, but who cares? The men
Yeah.
have gotten more for 100 years in wrestling. So I'm okay with it, but he does it correctly. Like he's not pushing it down our throats. Like you remember when WWE in 2018 kept doing women's
Yeah.
evolution, and it felt so fake.
They're just the
He's
main
doing
part of the show.
He's
Yeah.
just doing it and it's natural. It's like, oh yeah, Bailey opens with Julia, of course. Oh,
Yeah.
the tag women main event, of course. Like he
Yeah.
just does it so simplistically. So, you
Yeah.
know, and maybe pivoting to AEW is the incorrect thing because I don't think there are more diametrically opposed wrestling shows on how to book women's wrestling than any AEW show, and WWE NXT. But to pivot to that, so Billy, we've covered this on the podcast. You've not had the best luck with Mercedes Moné
I
and
have
Sasha
not.
Banks matches, right? Like
Yeah.
you've
I'm
hardly
sorry.
seen her wrestle in person.
Yeah.
You were in Toronto famously the night before she made her blue hair return, gave the ticket away because you didn't think she
Selena.
was
Yeah.
coming to Lena because you didn't think she was coming. You missed that. You went to the last AEW show in Clarksville, Tennessee. Not only did she not show up, she was supposed to wrestle, but because of the travel delays in Japan, she couldn't. So you missed that. So you got a chance where it was advertised in advance. She was fighting Yuka. So you're like, I'm getting in my car on my day off. I'm gonna go and watch this. So walk us through what you got in AEW.
Yeah. The other one that comes up, and it's probably the worst one, is she was supposed to do a meet and greet at the end of May in Knoxville, Tennessee, which I had a ticket for, and that's the month that she broke her foot. So
Oh.
she canceled that meet and greet because she was on crutches. So it has been all bad luck. But the luck is good. The luck has changed. It was good luck. Not only did I get to see her wrestle, but we found out I think about 15 minutes into the broadcast that she was going to be main eventing. So I drove down to Huntsville, about 2 hours away from where I live. Von Braun Center, never been there before. Actually, decent little venue for a wrestling show. Uh, Talked to some people that I was saw on the way in, sitting around. Most of the people I talked to would go to either a WWE or AEW show if it was in Huntsville, Alabama. And I think that that's probably why some of the reactions people felt like there were some decent reactions, maybe better than you thought would be in Huntsville. But my luck also changed, and I had a back row seat near the entrance ramp that when they configured the seats, they got rid of that row, legitimately got rid of that row and moved me to second row in front of the ring. If you're listening to this podcast, if you want to see the vantage point, I've posted the video. I had to record the whole match because it was just such a good point of view. But I thought the crowd was pretty good, all things considered. Pretty hot crowd that seemed like AEW. Like at the beginning, just a lot of pride at being at an AEW show. Tony's got to invest some money on their commercial break type entertainment and hype because the crowd just dies and part of it is maybe what the product was, and people really didn't love the show, and you had a lot of matches that had interference and chop fests and stuff like that. But merch stand had almost no women's stuff, so that was disappointing. They had one Mercedes Moné sticker. They didn't have a Mariah or a Mercedes shirt. I think they had a Tony Storm shirt, and that was it. Lots of men's gear, lots of low card men's stuff. And I bring this up just to say is if he really wants to move forward and create some momentum, they've just got to do a better job on the in arena. I love that I got upgraded, but I probably got upgraded because they didn't sell enough tickets to the show, right? There's not an empty seat as great of a seat where I sat if someone pays for it. The seats next to me were empty, and the seat if you watch my video, there's a row of 5 front row seats in front of me that were empty. I'm a rule follower. Everyone was like, just jump the seats. And I'm like, there's a security guard right there. And the last thing I needed was, I had a good enough point of view. I didn't jump the seats, but the front row was empty. There was a guy behind me screaming AEW the whole time with his daughter. AEW, AEW, cheered for some pretty lackluster in-ring segments, and then booed the crap out of Mercedes. And that's a little bit of that. Little bit, not booed like into her character, booed like yelling stuff like, Jade did it better and stuff like that. And it just, me and Raj
That's
have
why I'm
talked
booing
about
him. He has terrible taste.
terrible. Talked about a lot. You just think there's a segment of AEW fans that they want it to be kept small and they want it to be the indie thing it always was. And frankly, it's just not going to last if they don't grow past that. So that's the negative. Flip side, the 3 people in front of me, which if you watch the video, and actually when I posted to X, the little girl, it was a dad and 2 girls. That was their first AEW show. She made a friendship bracelet that she gave to Mercedes. And in the video, you could see Mercedes, like, she's like, is that for me? And then the little girl hands it to her and she's like, thanks. And it was like a fun little interaction because Mercedes does not work the crowd in a face way the way she does at NJPW shows and do pictures and stuff. She's a heel, right? So she kind of had to do it incognito. She's like, just grabbed the bracelet and said thank you. There were a group of little girls up in the 300 section at the top that I could hear them from the beginning of being the Tron coming up, that her match was coming up, just screaming CEO. Like, I don't know if you could hear him on the broadcast. I tried to hear him. I couldn't, but they're just screaming CEO, chanting it. And I'm sitting here going, it's empty down here. If I was Tony, if I was the producer, I would have grabbed that group of girls and brought them downstairs to fill in the lower bowl. Personally, a lot of really good energy. I saw them after when I was leaving. They came up and high-fived me because I was wearing a Mercedes shirt. and they were yelling, they were like 6-year-old girls. They're like, Yuka sucks, Mercedes all the way, like Yuka sucks. One girl was trying to get me to like, she's like, Yuka sucks, right? And I was like, just laughing. But it was a mom and her 3 daughters and 3 friends. So just that was fun to see, and it was their first AEW show, and they came specifically for Mercedes. So I thought that was really cool.
One of them is gonna end up wrestling her in 10 years.
Hey, 20 years, 15. um, Close enough. You can really see the wrestlers protecting the moves where they're protecting each other. You could really see what was stiff. Samoa Joe was stiff. Like everything he was doing, you're just like, ow, ow. But that's Samoa Joe, right? Um, it was a really cool vantage point. You could see a lot of the work. I thought, believe it or not, Mercedes and Ricochet looked like they were the only 2 wrestlers who truly knew how to work a crowd on the heel side. All of the other heels were heels, or whatever, but Mercedes and Ricochet really worked the crowd well. The guy next to me was yelling, bald, 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 and no one else chanted in. And Ricochet literally looked at him and he goes, hey, shut up, man. No one likes you. That's why no one's chanting. And it was funny. It was funny. But I enjoyed the Mercedes match. I'm stoked I got to see her main event. Absolutely worth the drive. I thought the match was fun.
It was, yeah. I liked
Yuka
it.
seemed a little nervous, but I think they put together a really, really good match. That the last thing I'll say, commercial break people were complaining about on X. We saw the recap, like everyone else did, and besides that, no announcements, no commentators, no nothing. I think we went 9 minutes without anything. And you just talk about cooling off a crowd and just making it so everyone's just at a low when the main event starts. It's just very poorly produced in the arena. It just is. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah. I have
So
to
I want your opinion. So I'm gonna tee up the softball for you, Chrissy. See, we have long wanted to be positive about AEW because our favorite wrestler who inspired us to start the podcast and why we met in Mercedes is there. And obviously we're buying the pay-per-views, we're supporting her. But you are a woman who is a women's wrestling fan. What is your perspective on AEW and women's wrestling and how they do it over there?
I was just gonna say I have to agree with you. I attended Big Business, AEW
Oh,
Big
that's right,
Business,
you did. Yeah.
on a rumor.
So
It
jealous.
said it was gonna be held in Boston, and I went into enemy territory. I went to Boston, the TD Garden. And when you were talking about, the production quality, this idea of the reception of women's wrestling, and while you were talking as well, I have to say this is not I don't want to make this a fan war. In my heart, I think NXT is the home of women's wrestling, and it has such a beautiful storied history.
Yep.
I'll put that aside. That has nothing to do with that I'm about to say right now. I think AEW could stand to promote women's wrestling. They have heels. Uh that's something nice that I think they could lean on, rest on their laurels. Wrestling fans have money to spend, and women's wrestling fans have shown that they will show up for their favorite on a rumor at Big Business. TD
Yep.
Garden sold out with 10,000 people plus. Does that happen without Mercedes Moné? I don't know. I'm just presenting the facts here.
No, we're
But
gonna say
No,
no.
no, no,
We
it
can say
doesn't.
no.
No, no, it
I
doesn't.
don't even think they had 900 to 1,000 fans before the announcement of AEW Big Business. It sells out, makes a million viewership. Shout out to Mercedes Moné being the draw once again. I've been to several AEW pay-per-views where I felt that structuring issue, where there's a VIP and you're getting a picture with a title and not a person. Could have easily for $150 be a woman's wrestler $40 a women's wrestler, 150 a photo and auto. There are fans ready to spend their money, and the tickets aren't that crazy price. I've gone to a pay-per-view for $100. Over the summer for Bindor, Stephanie versus Mercedes. $100 for a bowl seat, maybe 500 for a front row seat. There is a fan base. If you watch WWE, you know they got the money. Fans got the money to spend the money on women's wrestling. Lean into it. I know the dirt sheets and people will talk and people have their discourse and their discussion. Who's a draw? Who's not a draw? Women's wrestling is the categorical draw when you look at the numbers. When you talk about top fives and Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan getting record merch sales. When you talk AEW, Mercedes, the default merch seller. They need to re up. I need new shirts. AEW, get on that. AEW, get on that. I need new merch. Um, but there is such a hole there in AEW, which would be such a pleasant product because they have the wrestling. NXT has the soap operas. WWE, Raw, and SmackDown, they tend to fluctuate between who's telling the story and who's having the wrestling matches. But NXT feels like such a wholesome bite because you get that mixture of storytelling and wrestling. And for me, that's the sweet spot. That wonderful balance between the telling of a story, a cohesive story, and the in-ring action to back it up. And I know AEW has some magnificent storytellers. One of the best wrestlers today is Toni Storm, and she has a magnificent story going on with Mariah May, and they heat it up and they cool it down. They have one of, if not the best women's roster, top to bottom. They have the greatest wrestler today, Mercedes Moné, that she has 4 titles, and I still think they can do so much more with her. They can do so much more with their women's division, allocating the time. Uh, I think people, I don't know if this is a comment that's offhand to say, I think people could get off their laurels, stop resting on those laurels of we are the wrestling show and dive into those stories, invest in these women. Because when you I think that history is showing these past 10 years, when you put your time and your effort into them, the investment returns tenfold, 100-fold because you have main event stars for the next 10 years. You have Rhea Ripley, you have Bianca Belair in the WWE side. You have Roxanne waiting in the wings. You have the potential in NXT who has Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and those ideas of who goes where based on what is presented. I imagine these decisions are made because of, hey, who's being presented the best, who looks the best. If a women's wrestler is a free agent and she wants to go somewhere, she gonna go to WWE, she can go to AEW. I don't want to do that fan war stuff, but AEW is a place to be. They have the best wrestlers. They have Mercedes Moné, they have Mariah May, they have Toni Storm, they have a ton of Joshi wrestlers that they highlight. They have one of the greatest wrestlers right now that's not being talked about in Athena. They have dream matches up and down the card that any day you could put them, that could be a pay-per-view match. That could be an all-in match. Um, and they're proven draws, they're proven to sell. I think they just need that bit of a push and those big key matches, those big key segments that are not just a minute, that are not just 20 seconds, that they don't just get a 5-minute match or a story that starts and stops or starts and sputters. Uh when the time comes. Uh they have stars like they have a Britt Baker where they have someone who's a talker. Maybe not, someone you say, "Oh, this is the best in ring person." They have those talents. They have the in ring acumen. They're honest is the in ring acumen. Uh, the problem on the flip end is, WWE. You guys were talking about the booking. Triple H and my hang up, same problem. Women's wrestling, they don't know how to present them. And NXT, they hit the notes perfectly. Because they protect the wrestlers, they know where the story's going. They don't make anybody look like a jobber or a wuss. everyone's presented, in my estimation, as a legitimate threat. And what's disappointing and disheartening is when you see on main roster, it's almost they have these star pieces. They don't know what they're doing with them. They don't know what to do with them. It's like you have a superstar, you have money printed. How do you not know what to do? Just
Yeah.
You
give
you
him the rocket and let him fly.
you said a lot there, and you spoke very eloquently on all of it. So I'm gonna touch on a couple of things. So
Sure. Apologies for all the
no,
lengthiness.
no, you were tremendous. First and foremost, women's wrestling is an unequivocal draw. The numbers are there. I'm not going to go through them, but I do look at the NXT numbers, and Julia is the number one quote unquote draw in NXT, and Stephanie's number two. And I think that's actually why they're keeping them apart, because it's like, why would I put them in a feud? Because then it means they're going to share screen time together all the time. I'll wait for that, but I'm going to split them apart because I'm going to get an audience with Steph. I'm going to get an audience with Julia. They're presented as like the two pillars. The other thing is, I've always felt this way. I mean, this is a personal opinion of mine, not the podcast opinion, your opinion, Billy's opinion. This is my opinion. I only think Tony Khan has women's wrestling because he has to have it. I just think there are TV people, maybe at Warner Brothers, who are like, you got to have some women's wrestling, Tony, because we're going to be seen as anti-women or whatever if you don't. But
That's what it feels like.
the way he puts his effort into it, he doesn't seem like somebody who grew up caring about women's wrestling. He doesn't seem like someone who's invested in it. Like, I don't expect him to be NXT, because you know what? Triple H isn't even NXT right now. Like, he's not even close to what NXT is doing with the women. But he could be at least as good as SmackDown. He could be as good as Raw. That's not that high of a bar. And he has the talent to do it. I think Mariah May is the best heel in all of wrestling for women. I think she's the best heel. I think Tony Storm, you could make a case, is the best character.
Yes.
You could easily, and we have made the case, Mercedes is the best in-ring performer. So you have all of these pillars.
Willow could be the best
phenomenal,
babyface.
Oh my
phenomenal
gosh, I didn't
baby
mention
face.
Willow. Love
Willow
her.
is a phenomenal baby face. Chris Statlander is just a tremendous talent. Athena is a tremendous talent. Britt Baker can talk like an Alexa Bliss can talk, right? So you have all the pieces and the ingredients to make a great meal. But it's like Tony doesn't know how to put the pieces together. Like, he would be well served. I know he hired Jen Pepperman. He would be well served to bring in a guy or a woman who their only focus is women's wrestling. And he's like, he stays away out of it. He doesn't book it. He doesn't touch it. He just says, your thing, you're going to get 30 minutes a week, cook. Because it's too easy to make that product good with the talent they have. And he just has never done it, including, I agree with something you said, Chrissy. Mercedes has 4 belts, yet it doesn't feel like she's booked like she has 4 belts. Like, she's not, to me, seen as more important than 12 men on the roster, who she is clearly a bigger star than, and is a better in-ring performer than, and is a better merch seller than. But like,
They
they don't
they
capitalize. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, they no, that's it. They did nothing. There's no part of her presentation to a fan who doesn't know any better in arena, you know, where it's like we've got the greatest women's wrestler in the world main eventing. She's got 4 freaking belts. You know what I mean? Like think about Kenny Omega's presentation in AEW when he had all the belts. And the wrestler can't do it on their own. Mercedes does everything that she can. She looks like the biggest star in the world. She's got the belts, she's got the in-ring performance, but like what you say on commentary and all that matters. And all the criticism to say, I actually think Mercedes knows all this and that's why she's there. I think that this is the thing that she is, planning to tackle. I think the time commitment though is more important than hiring the writer, because you said hire someone and give them 30 minutes. I think Jen Pepperman could do it, but she rarely has 30 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. This is to say, with, in my opinion, there's still being leaps and bounds made.
Yep.
About 3 years ago, there was no women's New Japan Pro Wrestling. And if you brought that up, it was an argument. There is none.
Hmm.
Historically, there's not. Why are you bringing that up? Mercedes Moné and Kairi Sane were the first women's wrestlers signed to New Japan Pro Wrestling. And then Kairi went back to WWE. And Mercedes, at times, I feel like she was signed to AEW to say, I got the big three: Okada, Osprey, Mercedes. The one night that I felt like she was treated like the star caliber that she is was the night I saw her debut. Women opened the show.
100%.
She gave
Hmm.
her mission statement. I was like, ah, this is giving me such vibes. Like when Cody Rhodes returned, I feel like she will have that prodigal daughter return. That she is that top star, that she is an equal plane, let's say an Omega, an Osprey, an MJF. But there's sometimes with the presentation of these wrestlers that gives off that we need you to know that they're a tier below. And
Hmm.
I can't accept that for one of the, if not the greatest wrestler on North American soil. I cannot accept that
Well, you
because
shouldn't accept
the
it
body of work
because
is there. The work was put in. And I know we've made strides. New Japan Pro Wrestler 2023, the women's IWGP title is defended for the first time in 24. For the first time, they get 5 minutes. This year, what they get 8 minutes at the Tokyo Dome, and Mercedes gets on the main card. In previous years, they're on the pre-show card. So there's strides being made in the wrestling world. But for me, that's not enough. You're the number one and number two promotions for wrestling in the world. You have a platform. When the numbers are showing 40% of wrestling fans are women, you have that audience that you owe a
yeah.
show, and you have the stars.
Well, so here's the thing, right? And I don't know, Billy is married. I have a girlfriend and she's not a wrestling fan, but she understands why Roman Reigns is the face of WWE. Like she's like that that makes sense to me. Like looking at him, I get it. As a woman, I'm like, "Oh, I would watch programming because this guy is on my screen." She doesn't understand in AEW why she's like, why Mariah or Mercedes aren't like elevated higher, because she's like, when I watch the men, I don't see the heartthrob men on AEW TV that I see on WWE TV. Like, I understand why Roman Reigns is Roman Reigns. But she's like, what is it? The Death Riders. She's like, what is so special about these guys? Like, they just look like dudes. They're not like, oh, wow, look at this is like a movie star. Like she understands, even though she says the tattoo is hideous, why Cody Rhodes is in the position he's in. He's a really good looking guy. He presents himself very well. Even she's like Punk, you could tell he was good looking when he was younger. But like what she was telling me is like this looks like it just doesn't make sense why these are the guys I'm seeing on my screen. All like whenever you watch this thing, it's like, why? Because the women look like bigger stars. Like the women feel like they are bigger stars in AEW than the men, but they get such less time. And you're right, Chrissy. You don't have to. We shouldn't have to accept it because in WWE, I know people didn't like it when they did it, but when Undertaker came out to kind of pass the torch to Rhea, I thought that was cool because they chose a woman. Like they didn't choose an American. They didn't choose a male star. They were like, Rhea Ripley is the next Undertaker. She's the next icon. She's the next marquee attraction of this company. And I thought
That's
that
much
was
better than
really,
taking a spot.
yeah, yeah. And I just thought that was so cool. And like nobody in WWE, like if you were to go to CM Punk and be like, hey, Rhea Ripley is a bigger star than you, he'd probably be like, yeah, I would agree. I would rather watch Rhea Ripley than watch myself too. Like the way they treat women, I know they're not perfect in WWE, and I'm not even saying there because last night they certainly were not perfect. They had their flaws, but the women feel like an equal part of the presentation in WWE. They definitely feel like the lion's share of the promotion in NXT, and I'm not asking for that from AEW, but in AEW, it just never feels like they're anything other than bit players. And look, I can say this. If Mercedes did not wrestle there, I'm not watching that show. And I think Mariah May is fantastic. And I think Tony is great. And I think Chris and Willow are great. I would probably watch their YouTube segments, but I'm not going to watch a whole program. I'm watching it for Mercedes because I never know when they're going to, because that's the other thing. I don't know when she's going to pop up on this show. She could pop up at the beginning at 9:05. Like, I don't know anymore with the way AEW books. So I don't know. I
It's
mean,
and for me it's a
Billy, you were
hard
there.
threshold and an ask because $50 pay-per-views now they're on
Yeah.
Max, which is great, but I think it's a higher entry level ask as a second number 2 promotion and lower access to say, hey, you want to be a fan, you have to buy in when WWE for the year, $30 buys you a whole year of Peacock as a customer, as a paying customer.
Hmm. Yeah.
Some I'll say real quick. WWE fans, the vibes are incredible right now. And AEW fans, vibes are not incredible. Mercedes fans, vibes are incredible. Everyone who went to see Mercedes at that Huntsville show had a good time. And you know what? They had a good time during the Osprey match. They had a good time during the Ricochet match, and they had a great time during the Mercedes match. And so she's making a difference in that company. There were people in the crowd that would have never attended that show had she not been there. It's going to take some time. It's going to be a little bit painful, but she's
Mm.
accomplishing that mission statement. It's just not like linear success. There is a segment of AEW fans where there's these bad vibes. They want it to be the number 2 promotion. Hell, they want it to be the number 1 promotion. They want to overtake WWE, but they also want it to be an indie show. And that don't make sense. And they've got to come to grips with, for AEW to succeed, it's not going to be an indie show. But it is a bit too much of it that's still presented like an indie show. And as Tony's pushing it to be a better produced show, he does have a segment of fans that are pushing back against any of that, and they've got to come to grips with it at some point because it makes for an uneven presentation, uneven show.
You're wearing the shirt, Chrissy. Yeet. I
Yeet.
actually think that Jay Uso's run has reminded me a lot of 2016, 2017 Sasha Banks, where
But they
this is
gave
the
him the ball. They didn't give him
right.
the
No, but
ball.
that's the difference, right? The difference is they never gave the WWE Sasha Banks the ball. They are giving Jey Uso the ball. And I'm not talking about them in the ring. I'm talking about how they're so popular, but then it's like they never won the big match.
Yeah.
And even when Jey Uso beat Braun, who was like Charlotte, he lost right away. He lost right away back to Charlotte. They're finally saying, okay, this guy has something with the crowd. We can't keep pissing our paying customers off. We got to give him something. And I
Yep.
never felt like WWE ever did that with Sasha Banks.
I have a
Even though
bold
she, even
prediction.
though, even though she main evented WrestleMania, which is kind of crazy to say, right? That somebody main evented the pay per view the first, NXT pay per view the first, and main evented WrestleMania first, doing all 3 of them at in terms of the singles match. And we always felt like they never gave her enough in WWE. But in
Yeah.
AEW, she gets everything I ever wanted from a booking standpoint, like meaning how she wins, how she's protected.
Yeah.
But they haven't done enough for me after anything other than in the ring. Like in the ring, I think they've done great with her. She's what she should be. Putting people, like helping people elevate, having great matches on TV, having great matches on pay-per-views. But Billy has a really good point, which is it's like Nirvana in 1990 Seattle, and there's a fan base of Nirvana that never wanted to see Nirvana on MTV. But for Nirvana to become to become Nirvana, they had to go on MTV. They had to become popular. AEW has to understand that it's in the entertainment business as much as it's in the professional wrestling business. It's not just a professional wrestling company. It's an
I
entertainment company.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. I have a bold prediction,
Okay.
and I'm okay to be proudly and loudly wrong because I think what Billy alludes to is her mission, and I think that Mercedes came to AEW because maybe she saw that hole and she said I have to fill it. And I believe in her mission enough to support her and watch and to root for her to fill this hole and prove a point. Cody Rhodes, when he returned to WrestleMania 38, was seen as the prodigal son. He was the first AEW top guy to leave AEW and jump ship to WWE. And I could very well see this being Mercedes Moné in 2026, 2027, 2028 if AEW does not capitalize on her. She's the top star. She's got 4 belts. They have a top girl in Mariah May. Um, they have a supporting cast to dream for. Willow, Chris. They have Athena in ROH. They have uh, they have multiple players to work with. I think if they drop the ball, they lose because if they lose Mercedes Monet, I think they lose, and I don't do the whole I vote for AEW, I vote for WWE to win or lose, but AEW has the hot tag as Billy alluded to. The vibes are good. It's a happy time to be a WWE fan. AEW fans, it feels a little bit cold and tepid, and some numbers people will present arena draws and ticket sales and metrics and quarterlies. I don't have to see that to know that it feels cooled off, and I know they'll think of a huge money match to make up for it at All In, but you have those worries. Will they put that match on TV instead of the pay-per-view that it should be on? Well, the mistakes that they make is it's hard because they're going up against a company with 40 years of uh a head start, and in 5 years they've done some unprecedented things and created success. They have a streaming which they got within the first 5 years, and I don't know the metrics or the money of that, but that's a huge accomplishment. They have made excellent strides. WWE is better because AEW exists and it
Mhm.
has competition. Wrestling is better because there's a second avenue and a channel and an alternative, as Mercedes often touts, that women's wrestlers don't have to just see if they're good enough to make WWE. They have the option of going to AEW. How do you make that choice? You make it the place to be, but not just for top free agent guy or make it look good so the top women's wrestler free agent at the time decides to go to you. You make it and you make it consistent and you keep those reps going because if Mercedes Moné makes the prodigal daughter return at WrestleMania 42 and 43, are we gonna LOL TNA AEW?
Yeah, I mean, I think we said that a couple weeks back.
I
I think
apologize for repeating.
no. That means you're right in line with the thinking of the same thing. Is like this has to work. I don't think AEW fans understand that this has to work. You know, Claudio Castelloni is not having a career renaissance in AEW, right? Not that he's as big of a name free agent. Um, Daniel Bryan had a fun little, you know, it, if Mercedes doesn't sign a second contract, I think it could
it could mean that AEW's peaked. They're never going to get past what they've gone to. I think they need to keep her till at least 2030 and get something built around this women's division. And to your point you nailed is free agents need to go there and have benefited from going there, right?
Yeah.
And you know, she said a bunch of times that she's happy and loving it. I think part of what she loves though is some of the great stuff she gets to do in NJPW, who do treat her like a star and make her look like a star. So um I got all the faith in the world she's going to get it figured out because
Me
I
too.
believe in her willpower over their clunkiness. Um, them shooting themselves in the foot. You know, I think she's going to get them there slowly but surely. Um, and one of the ways she's going to do it is by making all the women around her better, which I think her and Bailey are the best in wrestling history at making the locker room around them better or the ring work around them better, producing better matches. And I think that's why you see her about to go into a feud with a Harley Cameron, who's super entertaining, and they'll get a good match out of that. I think Willow and Chris have were both great, and there's growth there as well. And I think she's going to make it happen. But you could certainly sit there from the passenger seat right now and say, hey, like this is pretty rocky, even though you know she's enjoying the matches and stuff she's having. They're not putting her in a position to carry the company, and we know she's capable of doing it. Raj, you want to have last word?
Yeah. So do you guys okay? When Stephanie McCourt had the match with Mercedes, I think Chrissy, you attended that in Long Island.
Yes.
Okay. And there was a lot of controversy on Stephanie then immediately going to WWE, right? Like she was like the hottest free agent in the world. Everybody wanted to sign her and she went to WWE. Can anybody now debate that she made the wrong choice? Like, look at how she's presented in NXT. There's no way anybody can be honest that she would be like presented like that in AEW.
No, no way.
And so Stephanie knew what she needed to do, which is, hey, I got to get on the biggest platform with the company NXT. I'm going to separate it as if it's not part of WWE, but it is. And I'm going to get the best out of this. Like they have built a television show around her and Julia. Like those two are NXT to me. Like they are the reasons that people love NXT so much. Like they are the foundation. He's not getting that in AEW, so nobody can be mad at her for choosing
Mm.
WWE. And this goes back to the point about free agents. Who, as a free agent, has benefited from going to AEW?
I would say Mercedes has because she says she has,
Yes.
and I trust her word over anyone else's. What I will say though is you have a once in a lifetime type of willpower on that woman that most people do not have. And so most everyone else who's gone and benefited is in the twilight of their career. Who's gone as in their prime and benefited? Only her.
Yeah.
Mariah. Unequivocally Mariah.
Yeah, but
They
I
gave
think
But
her
Mariah, I'm talking between the two companies.
oh
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You're
yeah. Okay.
I
Well,
see
that's
Mariah
the
as an
number one.
original AEW. I know
Right.
Stardom and all that, but in North America, she's an original AEW. Willow's an original AEW. But when you're talking someone, if you're trying to say someone would leave WWE for there, how many times has that worked in their prime star? And it's really just been her so far.
there's one woman free agent out there that isn't attached to the two big North American companies in Mayu Iwatani, right? Like if you were to look at this is a woman who if that company signed her, there'd be a buzz. Mayu is it, right? She's out.
Yeah.
She's the only one.
I
Nobody
say
can
she'd go
watch
to Marigold, but if you're saying the big two,
the big two. Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about the big
I
you
two.
say
think
the
I
big
think
two,
Ricochet.
she goes to NXT, WWE.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the thing. I could not see Mayu's people watching the two shows in North America and saying, "Oh yeah, I want to go to AEW."
Yeah.
Even though Mercedes is an AEW and Mercedes is an all-timer who obviously has a history with Mayu, but like could you imagine WWE getting Mayu? Like they would almost, for me, put the nail in the coffin in terms of women's wrestling. Like they would just have the monopoly at that point because other than Mercedes, it's like, oh my God, you have Julia, you have Mayu, you have Io, you have Kyrie, you have Asuka. Oh, you have Charlotte, you have Becky, you have Bailey, you have Bianca, you have Steph. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I just, my last word is that we love women's wrestling. Crissy, I think, made the best point about women's wrestling fans spend money. And Billy's driving 2 hours. Gas is not cheap. Crissy is flying to Atlanta. Plane tickets are not cheap. We're not doing it. You guys aren't doing it for men's wrestling. Like you did not say, I'm getting in my car. I want to see the Death Riders. I don't know, Crissy, if you got on a plane and said, I got to go see, Trick Williams. And maybe he's part of what you want to see as well. The point I'm trying to make is that it's a burgeoning economy in itself. It's a cottage industry. And I think it's about time Tony realizes that, hey, stop playing in the small leagues, start playing in the big leagues. You get $180 million a year from your TV company to produce this product. You're on Max, which is a very viable streaming solution. Put the money and the effort into the women, and they will repay you. Because women's wrestling fans, if nothing else, they're very loyal. Look at Mercedes. Her fans have actually followed her over, her real fans, to AEW. Not the, oh, I love her in WWE, but then if she's not Sasha Banks, I don't love her. I don't consider you a fan at that point. I consider you a WWE fan who likes characters in that ecosystem. So
There's
yeah,
a numbers game to it too, and it just occurred to me as a businessman. AEW has at minimum 6 of the top 20 most popular drawing women's wrestlers in the world, right? He keeps leaning into men's wrestling. He don't have 6 of the top 20 men that draw. He don't have 6 of the top 30 men that draw. He don't, if
no.
you really think about
He
it.
has one.
And that's
He
why
has one.
NXT is crushing it in ratings.
Who's the one, Crissy? I'm curious.
This is very it's very controversial, but I think the numbers would support me. MJF, and that's it. People will say
Okay.
Omega. People will say Osprey. The quarterly views, and the merch sales will say MJF, and
Okay.
I don't like MJF.
Okay, no,
To say
that's
this.
fine. That's
He
fine.
seems
Because I
like
thought
he's
you were
phoning
gonna
it in
say,
since he re-signed. Like
I,
he seems unhappy. I saw him in the ring. He just seemed like he was sleepwalking this week. But
Yeah, that's speaking nothing to him as a performer. That's speaking to metrics.
so
the
so
the
before we
NXT
wrap
ratings will
here,
tell you that there's a set of people who would watch AEW if it was women's
yeah.
wrestling forward.
So here's my thing with AEW, right? Like I look at men's wrestling. If Jey Uso immediately went to AEW, he's the biggest star there, right? Immediately. Like if Jey Uso showed up on Dynamite on Wednesday, he's the biggest male star they have by far, right? Like it's not really close. But they would
Yes.
figure out a way to ruin him. They would figure out a way. They would be like, you know what, that yeet thing, you don't have to do that here. This is the home of wrestling. You don't want to get over because that's what sometimes when I watch AEW, it's like, do they go out there and say, try not to get over? Because they do a really good job of that. So Crissy, before we wrap here, I want to thank you for coming on the show. You were tremendous, and I definitely think that we're going to ask you to come back. You brought a great perspective. You gave us honestly some opinions we did not have, and that's good.
Yep.
I'm now thinking Charlotte Rhea 3 now. I didn't even think of that match until 2 hours ago. I was like,
Damn.
I'm not gonna do that. So I want to thank you for coming on the show and giving us your perspective. I thought it was great. As always, to all of our fans out there who have continued to grow our podcast, our numbers are very steady now. We have a core base that listens to us every week. We know certain wrestlers move the needle more for us than others. You know, we ride the money train too here. We're not going to apologize for it. We
100%.
know that when Mercedes Moné is a centerpiece of our show, the numbers do better. So Tony, please, let's get going here. Like, you know,
I want to ride the
we
money
need to
train.
ramp up the money train because it helps our money, you know, so so we have a self-interest here. But you know, I think Crissy, we definitely want to probably maybe bring you back after Elimination Chamber, because I think that we will get the Mania card flushed out at that point. Because right now, I think a lot of it is up in the air.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we know Charlotte won the Rumble, but who is she choosing? We have both opinions. But we'll really know after Elimination Chamber because it'll get flushed out. So on that note, you know, we will be back here next week. And again,
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
next week will be the longest, next Sunday will be the longest day of my life in a long time, because I'm gonna have such anxiety.
You have something going on next Sunday? Is there something
You know,
important?
there's this important game that happens
Just a
that I
game.
think, you know, in America, you know, people kind of almost make it a
Something with
holiday. No,
birds.
yeah, something with birds. You know, everybody knows I'm an Eagles fan, and you know, they made the big game despite being, you know, Billy's gonna hate this, disrespected all year. Nobody gave us a chance. We are the Jey Uso of the NFL. You know, nobody gives us a chance. Sort of. I don't know. I don't believe that. I'm lying here. I'm not gonna lie. I think we were always a team that, if you were smart and you watch football, had a chance to make the Super Bowl. But it's going to be tough because we're facing Darth Vader and Lord Palpatine next week, and you know that I wanted Buffalo so bad as a fan. I was like, oh, we beat Buffalo by 2 touchdowns, but like that guy and that coach, yeah, I don't know. I'm scared.
That
I'm
referee
nervous.
that was part of the
That
team.
referee,
Yeah.
that singer, who's the girlfriend. But by the way, she is an Eagles fan. I just want to point that out to everybody that Taylor Swift is from Philadelphia, and she is a lifelong Eagles fan until she dated somebody on the
Travis
team.
Kelce.
Yeah.
No,
Sorry, Billy.
No, I'll echo. Thanks for joining us, Crissy. We look forward to it next time. And we ran out of time to talk about it, but I think the big thing from here is figuring out a way to get all of the women, the many women who deserve to be on the Mania card. I really hope that they put the work in and that we don't have anyone left off. 2 nights helps, but I do worry. So hope, you almost got to root for a multi-women's match or two, or else it's going to have some people left out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I think that happens. The WWE Women's Championship. I'm gonna give you good luck because the Eagles played last year, and Josh
2
Shapiro
years ago.
the Eagles played 2 years ago, and then
Mhm.
WrestleMania happened last year. Josh
Mhm.
Shapiro accidentally announced um the Eagles, so I'm just gonna take that as he predicted the winner of this year's Super Bowl by
We
accident.
are
He let it live.
we are compared to Cody Rhodes now. That, you know, we lost to Roman Reigns the first time in
Finish the
Patrick
story.
Mahomes, and now the Eagles have to finish the story and beat the unbeatable force. But
I'm not worried.
yeah,
I'm not worried for you guys at all. I think you've got it.
I because it's Patrick Mahomes, I know, you know, Bill, I don't know if you know this, Billy's a Lions fan. And
Sorry about that.
he
Oh,
I'm a
thanks.
Giants
and
fan. I don't get anything out
well,
of
I mean,
it.
then I should thank you as a Giants fan, Saquon. But
You're welcome.
what I was saying about the Lions is like, I know a lot of Lions fans, not just Billy, they had this unwavering confidence that if they got to the Super Bowl against Mahomes, that they could beat him. And I'm
Still
not
believe
like,
that.
huh?
I
And
still believe that.
I'm not that confident because that guy is the best ever. That coach could be the best ever. The defensive coordinator is the best defensive coordinator ever, other than Belichick. And I
We
mean,
didn't
they
even
just,
play well and we beat them.
yeah, I mean, we beat them last year too, but it's like
You're
a lot of people beat
Patrick
them in the
Mahomes
regular
is
season.
Charlotte Flair,
Yeah, a
and the
lot of people
Lions
beat them in
is
the a
James.
lot of people
So
beat them in the regular season, right? Like a lot of people beat the Chiefs in the regular season.
I
What
just have
happens in the
confidence in your
playoffs?
team that they can make it happen.
I think we can. I think we can win. Yes, but man, that guy, like I was just like rooting for Buffalo harder than I was probably even rooting for the Eagles because I was just like, oh my god, if we get Buffalo, I'll be relaxed. I'll be like, ooh, all right, we can chalk this up. But that guy going for the three-peat with Taylor Swift in the box, with the way the refs always seem to magically give him calls. I don't know. We'll see next week, man. I'll get there when I get there. But yeah, Chrissy, thank you so much for joining us. You were phenomenal. And we will talk to everybody again next week when we will now know some of the direction towards WrestleMania and to what is AEW's show in March called?
Revolution.
Revolution. All right. So we'll talk to everybody next week.
All right. Thanks,
yeet.
everyone.
Yeet.